All right, we're live. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, man. It's been a while.
Yeah. I was out of town for close to a week actually in New
Cool.
York and then Baltimore. But very happy to be back and no travel plans scheduled. I think until February or something. So
Awesome.
be here.
How was New York? Was that just business or more fun out there?
A little bit of fun. I was
Cool.
in town for like a conference outside of work, so that was good. And I caught up with some friends, and then down to Baltimore to see some family.
Cool.
Yeah. How you been?
I've been good. Things are really good right now. We've been I don't know, things just have been really nice. Last week was a good week with customer growth, and this week actually kicked off really good too. There's just like a nice momentum going on right now. I don't know, we're feeling different. I'm feeling different.
Good.
Just a lot of stuff. It's just all over the place, but it's the bulk email thing I think has turned some stuff around here. Like people are really excited about that.
Let me stop you right there. You keep calling it bulk email. In the product, it's called broadcast.
Yeah.
Why do you continue to refer to it as bulk email? Like what? I've always wondered this myself. It's like the domain language you have internally is not the same as you have it externally.
I go back and forth. I feel like bulk email is it's a really easy thing for people to get. I don't know, whoever's listening, I'm sure there's a lot of non-HighRise users. Calling it broadcast, is intriguing, but I don't think it's the point across, where it's just like internally, like, it's really easy to communicate what it does. As soon as you click on it, we still kind of communicate like, oh, it's a way of sending bulk email. So yeah, I flip flop though. Depending on the audience.
Yep. Okay.
But yeah, I don't really like calling it bulk email, but it seems easier in conversation with a mixed audience who has no idea what HighRise is, or especially not what a broadcast would be in something like HighRise that they don't use. So
the reason I was interested in that is because I found myself doing the same thing. So I was in an Uber today and I was talking to the driver. I always talk to drivers about stuff. And he's like, what do you do? And I'm like, I'm in the software business. I make some software. He's like, what is it? I'm like, it's this thing called Basecamp. I'm like, it's sort of a collaboration tool for people to keep track of the tasks they're working on together and the documents they're working on together. And if they're doing work with other people, it's a central place to meet and do all this work together and keep track of this, that. And those weren't the exact words, but I was kind of going through this and I'm thinking to myself, I don't explain it that way in the marketing site. I don't explain it that way. Unless I'm talking to someone, I don't explain it that way. But every time I talk to someone, I explain it that way. So I'm like, well, they'll get that. They'll get that. They'll get that. Yet on the marketing side, I don't talk that way. And I'm like, why is there a disconnect between the way I speak about the product and the way I write about the product? And it's one of those things that I have a feeling a lot of entrepreneurs go through this, or product people, whatever, I don't know, go through this. And it's just something that's always on my mind whenever I hear someone else do it. It reminds me that I do it. And I'm always wondering, what is it? What is it that prevents us from speaking about the thing in the same way all the time? And what is that? Is it just that you can explain it in different ways to different people in different contexts, that I figured the Uber guy might understand it better this way because perhaps he wasn't in the industry, or if someone's in the industry, they might use different terms. So I'm not exactly sure, but I find myself doing it, and I just want to bring it up as a thing.
It's probably a very good thing to pay attention to, because I mean, like you and I have talked about, I think we went into this kind of deeper in a previous episode, but like when I am stuck and am having trouble with anything from especially writing, but trying to get thoughts across, like speaking them out really seems to like trigger something else, right? And I'm sure there's some neurologist can explain this better, or psychiatrist or something, or psychologist, but it's like I feel like when I'm talking, sometimes the thoughts are even clearer, right? And it's like and then I try to take what I say back to written form. I worked with a guy who was, it's funny, I worked with a student. I was helping with his volunteer program, helping students apply for college. These were kids who had never, they were like the first in their family of generations to ever go to college. This was like, so they didn't have any real help at home to like, to go through this process, right? I mean, their parents had never been to college, so their parents have never applied to a school, and the application process is difficult, and writing essays and stuff. So we were there to kind of just help them do this, write essays and kind of apply to these schools. And I remember reading this essay this kid wrote about his background, and it was like, he was writing it. He'd written it already, and we were just editing it, and it was really bad. It was like very robotic. I did this, I did this, I did this, and it was like, no, this is hard, man. Like, no one's, I don't know, this is going to be rough for a probably an admissions person who's reading hundreds of these to get through this. So I just asked him, like, please just tell me your story. Like, just talk to me. Like, what did you do this year? Like, what's your deal? Like, I don't even know you. Tell me about your life.
Yep.
And he's like, I came with my mom from Mexico. I didn't speak any English as a freshman. It was really hard. And he just went on and on. It was his, and then by the end of it, he was like, I taught myself English, and by the end of senior year now, I help freshmen with math and with English, and like I'm like now teaching kids English, and now I'm getting A's, and it was just this beautiful story. I'm not gonna be able to do it like he did, but it was like I wanted to like cry. I was getting goosebumps when he told me this thing. So his words and the way he talked was so different, so we went back. I just started writing down exactly what he said, and it was so much better. It was so much more powerful. So I don't know. You point to a really good thing. There's a disconnect often, and you're right. It's a good thing to pay attention to.
It's funny, this weekend when I was in New York, I was talking to this guy who I'd only known online, and he was explaining his product to me. We're having breakfast. He was explaining his product to me, and the way he was explaining was full of passion, and he was totally into it, and he was going into all the details of the manufacturing and all the work they go to handcraft this thing. And I remember looking it up on his site and liking the pictures a lot and liking the story a little bit, but never as much as when he told it to me. And I'm like, why don't you tell it this way online? And I'm thinking to myself, why don't I give myself my own advice? Like, I realize how hard it is to actually translate that passion into a marketing thing. Yeah. It's very interesting. And it's something that's bothered me for years, actually, is that the way we often write when we're marketing is not the way we speak. We always try and talk in sound bites, which is not the way we speak. We try and come up with pithy lines, which is not the way we speak. And this guy was just like, he's like, and then we do this and we do this, and it's so hard. And it took it, like, out of the 20 things we make, four of them we have to throw away because it's just such a difficult process. And like, man, you got to tell that story. That's increasing the value of this thing that you're making significantly, I believe. Like, I want to know this stuff. And anyway, it's very hard for people who are in the trenches of their own work to see that. And so anyway, it's whenever I see it, I just keep thinking about me. Like, I'm sure I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
In fact, I know I'm not doing it. And anyway, just one of those things I wanted to bring up.
I'm glad you mentioned it.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought it. So there's a thing, I'm tempted to do this experiment on our marketing site right now. Not tempted, I will. I think I'll do this because I keep trying to throw out all sorts of different experiments, but like, I want to just record myself talking about HighRise and throw that up in a YouTube video. Like right now, like we have a nice little hand-drawn, caricature or whatever, and it's beautiful. Like I love the illustrations we have on the HighRise website, but it's just cute. But the all it is just aesthetic. It doesn't really do much except maybe catch your eye. But I'm curious if the product in the website wouldn't just be better served by just me talking, like. And I've seen some folks actually pull this off. They've just got like themselves talking in the side, like click play on the YouTube video and I will tell you all about HighRise in the way I talk versus, me trying to just get you to look at some headlines. I don't know. We'll see how that goes.
That's cool. I think there's something to that too. I'm a fan of that. I'm a fan of those that's one of the things I want to push for 2016 on our end is like, just communicating differently, taking a little bit more of a hardline position on certain things again, and just kind of getting out there and speaking our minds would be fun. So, hey, really quick before we continue, just so people know, if you hit /Q in the comments area and write a question, we'll see it on our questions board, and then we can answer questions. So we typically, when we go on Blab, we do Q&A. I know it's late at night. And there aren't a lot of people watching right now at this very moment. But if you have any questions for us, just /Q, write your question, and we will answer it best we can live.
Michael, thanks for throwing that Steam one in there. I'll check that out. That looks interesting already.
Yeah, I think there's just part of it is that here's the other thing. I think part of it is that when you think about putting up and this, we've suffered through this. You think about like making a marketing video or a product tour. You're like, it's got to be high production value, and I've got to like make sure I don't stutter and mess up, and like, but when you're giving a demo of something live to somebody, no one ever has a problem with you messing up,
right,
saying or getting stuck or being like, hey, you know what, let me show you this instead. I will come back to that. Like, no one ever has a problem with that. But you feel like when you put it sort of, when you film it and then you present it as the thing, like this is a thing now, then it's live and it's solid and anyone in the world can watch it, you feel like there's more pressure to make it perfect. I don't know. I don't know if people actually resonate with perfect. I actually think people do not resonate with perfect at all. So I think there's something to that. By the way, Travis is the guy who used to work with us, so it's good to see you, Travis.
Oh, cool.
In the comments section. I'll just pop this question up here about writing process. What's my writing process? So I just start writing basically. I just start writing often from the middle, sometimes from the beginning. But I don't have an outline. I don't write a rough summary of what I'm going to write. I just start writing, and I don't read it really while I'm writing. I just write, and then I go back and read it when I feel like I'm done. So one thing I used to do is I used to sort of proofread as I went, and I found myself, it took longer, and I got stuck in a rut and just kept working on a paragraph after paragraph after paragraph, the same one, and I just didn't get anywhere. I want to get all the ideas out, so I just keep writing and writing and writing. It's typically too wordy. I cut it back, then I kind of end up making it a little bit longer for a while, and then I keep cutting it back until I feel like it's tight. But that's kind of how it is. It's sort of messy. But it's off the cuff, as if I'm saying it out loud. So I do think when I'm writing that I'm actually speaking what I'm writing. That's more for like an article, and I think my articles are more like that. But when I get into like marketing site stuff, where you're like headline, subhead, copy, you're like I gotta keep it shorter and then you're like, well, am I speaking anymore, or am I just sort of presenting like a presentation? It's just a different thing. Anyway, I don't know but that's my writing process. I just go for it. I don't think too much about it. And people I've run into, like my wife has trouble sitting down and writing things this way. She's always amazed that like I can write so quickly. And the reason I can write quickly, I think, is because I don't stop. I just go through the whole thing and then proofread it and do another take on it, and then I'm kind of done, versus toiling over paragraphs as I'm writing them. Anyway, what about you, Nathan?
Yeah, a bunch of similar stuff. A couple things that are really important to me. I mean, everything is different. It depends on the context of what I'm writing in. But if we're talking about like articles that you'll see on say Medium or something, I read a lot. I'm a big believer in like, I think I think people worry too much about how much they spend on things like books and how much they inundate themselves with books. We've talked about this before. I think people also read a book through feeling like it's some sort of investment that they've made, and they don't realize like the opportunity cost of like not reading another book. Like it's one of those sunk cost fallacies, right? Like it's like they read part of a book and then they think they have to finish it because they've already invested 2 weeks starting it or whatever. But I'm a big believer in I read so much, and I'm just looking for surprising things. So I try to read a ton and look for things that might not be cliche, that might be a little interesting, that you might not have really caught even if you read the article. Maybe if you dig a little deeper into like the past of this person, or if you compare it to somebody else, like, oh, you didn't realize that Muhammad Ali and Richard Feynman have actually some interesting similarities, right? Richard Feynman is this well-known physicist who helped create the atomic bomb. Muhammad Ali is a guy, like, I don't even know if he graduated high school, and he boxed, and you might not label him as even a really intelligent person. They had some really interesting things actually in common. Like, that's the kind of stuff that like I really want to get out in the world, that's really interesting to me. And I try and draw parallels to some of that stuff. And if a parallel ends up uh, to my life, I like to draw it back to that. And just, I like sharing stories and telling stories. So that's kind of my writing process. I'm just looking for interesting stories that people might surprise themselves with. And it's a good thing to kind of, get people to kind of keep following the next article if you can surprise them. So that's the stuff that's top of mind for me.
Cool. Let's see. You want to take this one here?
I missed your desk tweet. What was that?
I just said tis the season for organizing your fucking desk or something, cleaning your desk up. Because I came into the office today and I hadn't seen my desk for a week, and I just came in and I'm like, it's a fucking mess. And I kind of don't mind that actually, but sometimes I just like, it's nice just to kind of wipe it clean. Something I used to do was I would every few months just get a huge box and just take my arm and just like go across and put it all into a box and put the box under the desk. And then if I didn't take something out of the box after a couple of weeks or something, I'd throw it out. Like, I don't need these things on this desk unless I need them. And if I need them, then I'll put them back and they'll stay there. But if I don't go back in that box, I probably don't need it. So I haven't done that in a while. I don't know if I'll do that. But so when I did that, someone tweeted back some Einstein quote about, let me see if I can find it.
You had taken a photo the other day. So Basecamp 3, you guys have a recurring question about like, what do you look like today, I believe, right?
Yep.
I mean, Basecamp 3 is this recurring question ability. And I think one of them is like, what do you look like today? And people take, using the tricks editor, there's like a really easy way to click a camera button and you can take a photo of yourself.
Yeah.
You took a photo of yourself, I believe, from a desk that I have been sitting in. And I'm curious if you did that because your desk is such a mess that you sat in that desk.
I don't know why. I don't remember. It might have been the light or something.
Gotcha.
Here's the quote someone sent back. This is an Einstein quote. If a cluttered desk is a sign of a cluttered mind, of what then is an empty desk a sign?
No.
Yeah. All right. How about that? So anyway, +1 to cluttered desks, I guess. Let's see. Question is, I'm wondering how your products can promote serendipity discovery in addition to organizing and simplifying things. I think it's important. I think both HighRise and Basecamp are actually quite good at this. So both tools are very much about organizing information in ways that you can find. By the way, I think being organized is a huge competitive advantage. And I don't think that we talk about this enough. And something I want to talk a lot more about next year. It is maybe one of the most important things to do when you're working with other people. When you're working on your own, you can be a mess, but you know your own messes. Other people do not know your own messes. So predictability and organization is just a really good way to create significant efficiencies and not have people wonder where things are and have to ask each other all the time. And so staying organized as a group is very important, I think. That said, in Basecamp and HighRise, I'll take Basecamp for a moment. There's basically a latest activity screen, which basically allows you to click this one thing or tap this one thing and see a stream of all the stuff that's happening across all the different Basecamps you have access to, flattened out. And what we've done is at the top of every Basecamp, there is the organized chunks of information. Here's all the work that needs to get done. Here's all the discussions that have been going on. Here are all the files and artifacts in a Basecamp. Here's the schedule. Here's what's due. Here's what's coming up, all that kind of stuff. But then, so we have these scheduled or these organized blocks at the top, structured blocks. But right below that is a blown up, exploded, flattened view of everything that's ever happened in a timeline view that's very serendipitous. So you just kind of, all you got to do is like scroll once, and now you're in a different sort of, you're looking at the same information in a flat, unexpected way, and you run into all sorts of things that you wouldn't have seen, because if you just look at things in nice, neat stacks, which is useful when you want to go into something, you have to explicitly go into something to see the stuff inside the stack. But if it's flattened and blown out or exploded basically across time, you just run into things like, oh, there's that image. I didn't know that someone shared this image. Oh, I didn't know someone posted this comment. I didn't know this idea was shared. I didn't know this person completed the 7 to-dos. So I'm very much a big fan of both views on data, and Basecamp 3 is the best we've ever had at that, because inside one Basecamp, there are 2 views that are stacked on top of each other, one highly organized and then one flattened over time. And all you got to do is flick your mouse or flick the screen or whatever you need to do to switch between the views. And it's a really nice way to bump into stuff. I bump into stuff all the time. It's especially useful when you're going into a base camp that you don't access very often. Like our support team has one called Team OMG, and it's their base camp for their team, where they chat about stuff. They post important announcements about new features that are going out, so everybody in the support team knows what's happening. They keep track of schedules, who's on, who's off, who's on call, all this stuff. They post, they ask each other questions on a regular basis about good cases, bad cases, the whole thing. So I'm not part of that base camp all the time. So when I jump in, the first thing I do is I just like scroll down one flick basically on my trackpad or whatever, and I'm down and I'm looking at stuff over time, like what happened today, what happened yesterday, what happened the day before, and I bump into a lot of stuff I normally wouldn't have seen. So anyway, Nathan can talk to HighRise, but HighRise, the first thing you hit when you used to sign into HighRise was it still do, is like the activity stream basically. So if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean it's a similar concept, right? It's like HighRise is all about these conversations that you're having with people. Since taking over HighRise, the first thing I did was to make sure we were going to start using HighRise to track the conversations we're having with our own customers. And so it's been this really great stream to just kind of stay on top of those conversations that we're having. So, there's a filter. I can watch anyone who's talking to a customer, like Chris Gallo is the person who's basically talking to our customers all day long. So in terms of discovery, it's just, I watch what he's saying. I watch the kind of problems he bumps into, and it wasn't enough, to be honest. It wasn't enough because it was just watching Chris. And I would answer, support emails all the time anyway, but it was in a separate product. And so I wanted to get better at it. And so that was a big reason why we started moving. We ditched the help desk we were using and invented Good Morning, which is a help desk inside HighRise itself, and you can use for a group inbox. So that's what we use now for our help desk. And it's bringing these conversations we have with customers now deep into HighRise, and it's like full of discovery. I mean, I'm constantly now talking with customers now inside of HighRise. And those are great places where I'm bumping into problems and learning, new things people want, problems that they're having. So these days, HighRise is just this, you can't like help but stumble into something, because it's just this place where everybody's talking about what they need and what they're having problems with. So it's like constant discovery and constant place for ideas to make things better. So.
Cool. Let me close this out. Let's see. Yeah, cool. Before we get to this other question, I'm just looking back at the topics we were going to talk about because I sort of forgot. Let me check Basecamp really quick. So a couple things I put out. One of the things I want to talk about is this idea of the battle of the anecdotes. Which is something that comes up from time to time here at Basecamp, which is someone's like, I was showing my Basecamp to a friend and they said this, and therefore we should do that. Or like, well, I was showing it to someone else and they said this, therefore we should do that. Or those two things are completely diametrically opposed, so we shouldn't do either of them. Or you're wrong. It's not even like you're wrong, I'm right, but like your case doesn't support mine and mine doesn't support yours. So we can't do yours because it's not my world. And then the other person's like, well, there's these battles of anecdotes that happen sometimes when you just have product discussions. And it's so normal because people speak to their own experiences, and as they should. I think the thing that's important to remember is that we can all have individual experiences, and it's important to keep in mind, or to continue to ask yourself, is this a common experience versus just a personal one? Because sometimes we think our personal experiences reflect all the experiences, or are a common one, or are the one that most people have. But I've just noticed that it is sort of an easy way to lead into discussing a change, to say like, well, I talked to someone about this, or I saw someone do this and they were confused by that. So therefore, anyway, it's just something I've noticed. It's not really a super interesting topic, but I see it happening, and I'm curious if you've run into that sort of thing where someone defends something by one experience with one person, and that it makes it sound like everyone's this way.
Totally. And there's also something to the recency of it too, right? It's like if there's a recent story that happened, for some reason, that's the thing that's like focused in our head, right? If like a customer just came in, you just had a conversation with them, for some reason, the recency too is like it really creates this bias. Like I just had this talk with this customer, and all of a sudden that becomes like the focus. Well, what about 3 months ago when all sorts of other shit was hitting the fan, or all sorts of other problems were happening? Why are we losing track of that? And I mean, I'm not a trained psychologist, but like I've read plenty, but there's a lot of psychology to this thing. Like recency and stories are two things that like are really easy to like bias yourself and like get kind of stuck on. That's why politicians use stories all the time, right? That's why like a politician is up there not talking about, most of them don't talk about like, oh, you know what, like half the country does this. It's more like, oh, I talked to Joe the other day and he really needs XYZ from the government. And like that's what the politicians are using, because that's the stuff that sticks in people's heads. But it's not maybe always the right thing. It's not always the analytical thing. It's not always the really thought out, balanced thing. So I agree. It's really easy to get moved by a story when it may not be how the common case or what most of your customers are having. So, and I think you've done a good job of like, reminding people to step back. Like you've talked about like let the dust clear after, you release Basecamp 3, because some of those stories are recent, but like, let's just get a perspective of like everything that's going on, as opposed to reacting like right now to a problem someone's having this moment. Cause yeah, we do it too. It's really easy and we're actually, we're running out of time here. I'd like to do a deep dive with you over the next, whenever we can keep scheduling these things, if it's over next week or whatever. We're trying to redo tasks in HighRise. Maybe not redo them as much as like really refresh them and bring some other ideas to them. And like, we're struggling. Like there's so much nuance and thought and psychology to tasks and reminders and to-dos. And like, we're all over the place. Like there's a story of this person wanting this, and there's a story of this person wanting this, and I want this, and this, it's insane. And some of us are like, yeah, we've seen a lot of people ask for that. And other things like, we've seen a lot of people ask for that too. And we're having a really hard time, like balancing what we're going to do with this one. Cause it's not just one thing. It's like dozens of things are on the table, and this one's a struggle for us. This in a way that other stuff so far hasn't been. So anyway, hopefully we can chew on this a little bit in some other convos.
That's cool. Something I just saw in Blab, which, yeah, I'd like to actually go into that. Tasks is tasks, to-dos, that kind of stuff, reminders is a real area of interest for me in Basecamp next year in 2016. We want to make some really significant changes and improvements, and I'd like to riff with you on that too when we get to it. One interesting thing, I just like this little feature in Blab that popped up. I don't know if you see it too on this, or maybe everyone does. It's their first day on Blab, APTX, right? So that piece of design there is really, really good, because I think, at least, because it encourages behavior. Basically, Blab figures that they want people they want new users to, this is my guess, by the way, I haven't talked to them about this, but like they want new users to feel at home and feel welcome. And if you walk into a party, let's say, and you don't know anybody, and someone says hi to you, like that's a great icebreaker. Just hi, like I'm here. I'm not wandering around, not talking to anybody, looking down, like feeling awkward. Just someone says hello. And I feel like that's what kind of these rooms are, like a bunch of strangers. No one really knows anybody here, probably. And the Blab's encouraging you to say hello to somebody for the first time they've ever been on Blab. And if your first experience with something is other people saying hello to you, that's a really positive initial experience. I just thought I think that's a really nice piece of design, and a really thoughtful way to encourage behavior. Those patterns might have emerged on their own, but I like that they're really like calling it out with a big green block and say, hey, say hello to this person. So anyway.
And they made it frictionless. Like, yeah, like I didn't even type anything, and all of a sudden I've got a welcome Matt Copra, which would have been, there's a lot of friction to like writing even just that out and figuring out what their username is.
Yeah, like exactly. Like they could have instead of having a button there to actually do it for you, they could have just said, "Hey, welcome them in," and you'd have to type it yourself. Like it's a really nice piece of design, a really nice piece of product work. I think. I don't know if they went through a bunch of iterations on it or anything, but it's really nicely done, and I just wanted to call that out because I love seeing those kinds of things. So
let me see. Christian just asked about Salesforce. Christian, am I saying it right? Christian, yeah. Please just email support at HighRise HQ, and we'll help you out as best we can.
Yeah.
It's tough to talk about it in Blab on all those details.
Yeah. Well, cool. I think we've gone for maybe close to half hour. Cool. It's late at night. So thanks everybody someone's throwing us some major props, man.
Is that Zane?
Yeah, thanks. It's Zane. Thank you. So hey, this was fun. I'm glad we're back to this. I'm back in town now, so we'll do one tomorrow. And are you back in town for a while? Or are you going out of town next week for the holidays?
We leave. We go out of town on, I believe, Wednesday.
Okay.
But not for too long. And yeah,
cool.
It's a working away too a bit.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I'll be around. I'm not going anywhere. So if you want to hook up for a show, let me know. If not, we'll do it when we all get back.
Cool. And we should go see Star Wars.
Well, here's the secret. I've never ever seen any Star Wars.
Oh.
So this is a true thing. I've never seen Star Wars. And because of that, I love it. Because of that, I don't ever want to see Star Wars. And so I don't know how I missed it because I grew up like in that era. And I just kind of didn't see it. And then like I didn't want to see the sequels or the prequels or whatever. And then I just like became a thing that I've never seen Star Wars. And so I'm holding on to that. That's the only thing that I have that no one else has, I feel, from my generation or something like that. So
that's funny.
This is funny. Yeah. So anyway, I've not seen it.
All right.
Yeah. People at work rib me about this all the time, and I kind of like that. I like that. It's funny. I feel pure. I feel pure. I'm maybe the only one.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting. We don't have to go too much into this, but there's actually a really good, I think there's a little bit too much that we all kind of glom onto, and we actually like crowd out space for like, unique thinking when we all kind of want to look at the same thing. So I don't fault you for not wanting.
Like everyone at work is talking about today. I'm like, yeah, cool. Yoda. That's like all I know or whatever. So I'm like, I don't even know what that is.
Yep.
So anyway, it's fun.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So someone else will tell me how it is. I'm sure it's not as good as everyone thinks it is. But that's that.
Yep.
So we'll talk tomorrow.
All right, dude.
Later.
Bye. Bye, guys.